He flashed a smug smile at the room and declared, "This is Maria, my maid. She just helps around the house." She stood frozen, swallowing the shame like bitter medicine. Laughter bubbled up around her. Camera flashes exploded. Then the CEO stepped in, his eyes sweeping the crowd until they landed on her. He said one calm sentence that sent ice through Clifford's veins, because the woman he had just belittled as the help was about to take the stage, and everything he had built was moments away from crumbling in public. "Get comfortable. We're going all the way into this story." Clifford sat at his desk, staring at the email on his laptop screen, as though it were a passport to another life. Whitmore Holdings, annual black tie gala. Strictly invitation only. His pulse raced. This was the breakthrough. 3 years of late nights, forced laughter at bad office jokes, and relentless pretending to belong had finally paid off. An invitation to the gala meant he was finally being noticed. In Clifford's world, being noticed was everything. "Maria," he called. His voice echoed through their small, tidy apartment. The comforting smell of jollof rice drifted from the kitchen, layered with the soft strains of gospel music. She appeared a moment later, wiping her hands on a towel. "Yes, honey." Clifford turned the laptop toward her, grinning. "Look. The company gala. They invited me. You know what this means?" She smiled, genuinely pleased for him. "It means they see how hard you've worked." He nodded, but corrected her right away. "It means I'm finally being seen, Maria, by the people who matter." She leaned in to look at the elegant design of the invitation. "It looks very fancy. You'll need a tuxedo then." "And you're coming with me," he said, already envisioning the night. "It's a couples event. Everyone brings their wives." Maria blinked. "Me?" "Of course." Then, casually, reaching for his coffee. "But don't go all out, okay? You know how these corporate types are. I don't want anyone thinking we don't belong." She tilted her head. "Don't belong?" He sighed and set the mug down. "You know what I mean. Something simple. Modest. You always look beautiful when you keep it low-key." Her chest tightened. It wasn't the first time she had heard versions of this. She had learned to translate. Modest meant, "Don't make me look bad." "All right," she said softly. "Something simple." As she started to leave, his voice followed. "And Maria, when we're there, if anyone asks about you, just go with whatever I say. Some of these people are high society. I can't unpack our whole life story in one evening." Her steps slowed. "Whatever you say about me? What does that mean exactly?" He waved a hand. "Nothing serious. Maybe I'll just say you help with things at home. Just for now, until they know me better. It's business." Maria stared at him. "You mean, tell them I'm your maid?" His expression hardened. "Don't twist it like that. It's just how things work in these circles. You wouldn't understand." Her hands trembled faintly, but she kept her voice steady. "I understand respect, Clifford. Pretending I'm your maid doesn't feel respectful." He exhaled sharply. "Maria, please don't make this a big deal. It's one night. I'm building a future for us. Once I get promoted, everything will be different." Silence hung between them. The music in the background seemed to quiet. Finally, she nodded. "If that's what you need." He smiled, relief flooding his face. "That's my girl." That night, Maria lay awake beside him, listening to his even breathing fill the darkness. She stared at the ceiling, thinking how effortlessly he had reduced her, how small he had made her sound. Once he had cherished her simplicity. Now it seemed to shame him. She whispered to the dark, "One day you'll see me, Clifford, for who I really am." He slept on, dreaming of chandeliers and applause. The following week passed in a blur of preparation. Clifford bought a new tuxedo, polished his shoes for hours, rehearsed introductions, studied his boss's interests. Maria ironed his shirts quietly and observed. When she mentioned what she might wear, he didn't even look away from the mirror. Something decent. Maybe that long beige dress from church. Simple. Clean. She nodded and left the room. Gala night arrived under a sky-threatening rain that never fell. Maria stood by the door in a graceful cream gown, curls pinned elegantly, gold earrings catching the light. Clifford gave her a quick glance. Not bad, he said, fixing his cufflinks. Let's go. She offered a faint smile. Thank you. The drive was long and mostly silent. City lights shimmered ahead. Maria looked out the window, lost in thought. Clifford murmured rehearsals to himself and didn't notice how tightly her hands were clasped. They arrived to flashing cameras and valets opening doors. Laughter, champagne flutes, silk everywhere. Another world. Clifford straightened his tie, confidence swelling. Remember, he whispered. Smile. Stay polite. Don't stand out. She nodded. Of course. He offered his arm but dropped it the instant colleagues waved. Clifford, he called, striding forward and leaving her trailing behind. Maria followed, heels clicking softly on marble. The ballroom glowed in gold and white. A live band played smooth jazz. Waiters moved like shadows with trays of sparkling drinks. Maria's breath caught, not at the luxury, but at the strange blend of warmth and coldness from people who smiled without meaning it. Clifford blended in quickly, laughter louder than normal. When a coworker asked about the lovely woman beside him, he chuckled. That's Maria. She keeps everything running at home. My little house manager. The men laughed politely. Maria kept her smile in place, but inside something fractured silently. She excused herself and drifted toward the refreshments. Passing a mirror, she saw her reflection, elegant, yet somehow made small in a space built on status. Deep inside, something began to wake. The night played out like a performance Clifford thought he owned. He glided from group to group, shaking hands, exaggerating his contributions, acting like he fit. Maria stayed mostly on the edges, sipping juice, watching. She felt no bitterness, no jealousy, just quiet distance, like someone viewing a movie she already knew the ending to. A young woman with pearl earrings approached her. Excuse me, your necklace is beautiful. Maria smiled. Thank you. It was my mother's. The woman's eyes softened. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm Lydia. Maria. They spoke briefly. Lydia couldn't hide her surprise at Maria's intelligence. Are you in real estate too? Maria laughed gently. You could say I know the industry. Across the room, Clifford was boasting to senior partner Collins. I've been leading the Lucky expansion. My proposal really pushed it forward. Collins raised an eyebrow. Really? I thought Whitmore credited someone else. Clifford brushed it off. I did more behind the scenes. Collins gave a dry laugh and left. Clifford turned and saw Maria talking comfortably with Lydia and others. It irritated him. He crossed over and put a hand on her shoulder. Sweetheart, could you get me another drink? Her smile faded slightly, but she nodded and walked away. As she left, one woman whispered, She's so graceful. Is she really his maid? Clifford laughed it off. She just helps around the house, keeps things in order. They looked skeptical. When Maria returned with the drink, she overheard the last of his words. She placed the glass down carefully. Your drink, she said, voice cool and even. He looked up, startled by the edge in her tone. Thanks. She turned and walked to a quiet corner, eyes glistening. During dinner, the air filled with roasted chicken and spices. Clifford laughed too loudly at every joke, insecurity dressed up as charm. "Clifford," a colleague teased, "you're killing it tonight. Anyone would think you run the place." He grinned. "Maybe one day." Maria's eyes drifted to the stage. Mr. Whitmore, the CEO, had arrived. The room seemed to brighten around the tall, silver-haired man who carried effortless authority. People rose slightly in respect. Clifford rushed over. "Mr. Whitmore, sir. An honor." Whitmore smiled politely. "Good evening, Clifford." His gaze moved to Maria standing quietly behind. Their eyes met. A flicker of recognition passed. He gave her the smallest nod. She returned it with calm respect. "Enjoy the evening," Whitmore said, then continued on. Clifford exhaled. "You saw that?" "He spoke to me. That's a career moment, Maria." She stayed silent. As music resumed, couples danced. Clifford asked a colleague's wife to dance, saying Maria was too shy for this. Maria stood by the balcony, gazing at the night sky. She no longer felt anger, just sorrow for who he had become. The man who once held her hand at bus stops now performed for approval. When she turned back, Mr. Whitmore was watching her from across the room. He gave a faint smile. His assistant leaned in and whispered something. Maria caught fragments. "She's here." Whitmore nodded. "Good." Clifford stayed blind to it, too busy chasing validation. Later, Maria retreated to a quieter corner, preferring silence to shallow talk. But whispers followed her. "That's the one Clifford called his maid." "Maid? She carries herself better than half the people here." Maria kept her composure, though each word cut. At a nearby table, Clifford was again with Collins. "You'll see," he said confidently. "I'm ready for bigger things. I've proven my loyalty." Collins leaned back. "Loyalty matters. Humility matters more." Clifford forced a smile. "Of course." Lydia reappeared beside Maria. "You seem so familiar. Have we met before? Maybe a conference?" Maria shook her head gently. "Perhaps you've read one of my papers. I used to write about property law and investment ethics." Lydia's eyes widened. "Wait, you're Maria Fernandez?" Maria smiled. "I used to be." Before more could be said, silence swept the room. Mr. Whitmore had taken the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice deep and commanding, "thank you for joining us tonight. Before awards, I want to acknowledge someone whose vision and integrity have shaped our future. Our new international partnership stands on her insight. Tonight's host, my goddaughter, Maria Fernandez Whitmore." The room stopped. Heads turned. Gasps spread. Maria rose gracefully, face calm and poised. Clifford's hands dropped. "What?" he whispered. She walked to the stage, cream gown flowing under chandeliers. Each step rang in Clifford's stunned silence. At the microphone, she spoke softly. "Thank you, Uncle. I'm honored to stand here tonight." She smiled at the crowd. "My time with Whitmore Holdings began quietly. I've learned that true leadership isn't about volume. It's vision, dignity, humility, respect. Those build stronger foundations than steel and glass." Her eyes swept the room without settling on Clifford. "Often the people we overlook are the ones holding everything steady. Tonight, let's toast to unseen strength." Applause thundered. Clifford sat frozen, face pale. The maid had just hosted the gala. Maria finished with quiet grace. Mr. Whitmore joined her, pride in his eyes. Cameras flashed. In that instant, Clifford realized he hadn't just lost face. He had lost the one person who had truly seen him. Clifford's body refused to move even after the clapping began. He sat pinned to his chair, as if the velvet had turned to stone. His eyes stayed locked on the stage where Maria stood, calm, composed, radiating a power that changed the temperature of the entire room. The same Maria who ironed his shirts, reminded him to eat, listened to his complaints without complaint, now held a microphone like it was an extension of her hand. He swallowed. His throat felt full of sand. Around him the room buzzed in a new way. Whispers, stares, sudden curiosity rippling like wind through expensive scent. "That's his wife," someone murmured at the next table. "No," another voice started, then faltered, the word too embarrassing to finish. His colleague Tundai leaned in, half laughing in disbelief. "Man, this one passed you clean." Clifford couldn't speak. His tongue felt leaden. On stage, Mr. Whitmore stood beside Maria with quiet pride, like a man watching a long-planted seed finally flower. He patted her shoulder and stepped aside, giving her the center, not as a guest, but as the heart of the evening. Maria spoke again, voice smooth and sure. "I know some expected a different face tonight, someone always visible, but I've learned the strongest supports are often the ones you never notice." Her gaze moved across the crowd, not searching, not pleading, simply present. Clifford's chest constricted. He felt as though she could see every cruel thought he had ever buried behind a smile. She continued, "If tonight reminds anyone that dignity isn't tied to titles or introductions, then I'm grateful." Softer applause followed, as if some were clapping for a lesson they hadn't wanted to learn. Clifford's mind raced backward. Every time he told her to dress down, every correction in front of others, every "don't talk too much." Like her voice was a risk. He heard his own words echo. "She helps around the house." The memory punched him again. When Maria finished, the band returned with gentle instrumentals to soften the moment. Mr. Whitmore leaned in and said something that made her smile briefly. Small, private, controlled. Then she stepped down. The crowd shifted like water. People moved toward her immediately, hands extended. "Maria, that was brilliant. I had no idea you were with the firm. Your perspective is refreshing. Are you really Mr. Whitmore's goddaughter?" Clifford watched her navigate them with effortless grace, polite, never clinging to attention, never shrinking from it. And then she was walking toward him. For one desperate second, he hoped she would stop, speak, give him a chance to explain. She didn't. She passed close enough for him to catch the faint, clean scent of her perfume, and still she didn't look at him. Not a glance, not a flicker. That hurt worse than any insult. Tundai slapped his shoulder lightly, stunned. "Bro, your woman is a whole big deal. You never said?" Clifford's voice cracked. "I didn't know." Tundai narrowed his eyes. "You didn't know, or you didn't ask?" Clifford flinched. Across the table, Lydia looked at him with quiet disgust. Not dramatic, just disappointed. "You introduced her as house help," she said plainly, like reading a verdict. Clifford's face burned. "It wasn't." But he couldn't finish, without sounding worse. Collins leaned closer, voice low. "Clifford, the problem isn't that you didn't know who she was. It's that you were comfortable making her small." Clifford stared, breath shallow. Collins straightened his jacket and walked away, as if the conversation was already over. Clifford finally stood on unsteady legs. His hand shook. He scanned for Maria. She was near Mr. Whitmore, speaking with two older investors, nodding politely. Then Whitmore laughed and whispered something in her ear. Clifford took a step. Another. Heart hammering. He had to talk to her, had to fix this, had to prove he wasn't the man he'd been all night. Except, he was. He reached the group, forcing a smile that felt cracked. "Maria," he said softly, "can we talk? Please." She turned her head slightly. No anger, no triumph, just composure. "Clifford," she said, as if greeting a distant acquaintance. Mr. Whitmore's smile vanished. His gaze settled on Clifford like a weight. "Clifford," he repeated, tone carrying every overlooked report, every small arrogance he had tolerated, because Clifford delivered numbers. Clifford swallowed. "Sir, I didn't know. I didn't know Maria was important." Whitmore supplied, eyebrow raised. "Important?" Clifford froze. Maria spoke before he sank further. "Uncle, give us a moment." Whitmore studied her face, then Clifford's. He gave a slow nod. 2 minutes. The warning was clear. He walked away. Clifford leaned closer, voice low. "Maria, why didn't you tell me?" Her eyes held his steadily. "Why didn't you ask?" He blinked rapidly. Of course I asked. I asked about your day." "No," she cut in gently. "You asked about your day. You talked at me. You told me what you needed. You never asked who I was." Clifford's throat closed. "I love you." Her gaze didn't soften. Love without respect becomes permission. He winced, as if struck. "I was under pressure tonight. I wanted to impress them. I didn't mean it like that." Maria's voice stayed calm, each word precise. "You didn't mean to humiliate me, yet you did it so easily. Like it was natural. That's what hurts most." His eyes filled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I swear." Maria glanced at the watching room. "This isn't the place for a scene. You wanted respect here, remember? Then act like it." Clifford's shoulders sagged. "What do I do?" She studied him a long moment. "Leave early. Not as punishment, as protection. The longer you stay, the more you'll embarrass yourself trying to fix what you broke so casually." His lips trembled. "Are you coming with me?" Her answer was quiet and final. "No." Clifford felt the floor tilt. "Maria, please." She took a slow breath. "Go home, Clifford. We'll talk there." He clung to that small mercy. "Okay. Yes. We'll talk." Maria stepped back as another guest approached with a smile and outstretched hand. In one motion, she became host Maria again. Professional, graceful, untouchable. Clifford stood suddenly invisible, watching the room move away from him like he was no longer worth noticing. For the first time that night, he understood what it felt like to be made small. Clifford drove home alone, gripping the wheel until his knuckles whitened. City lights blurred, not from rain, but from tears he refused to wipe away. He wanted to feel the sting. He deserved it. At home, he couldn't sit. He paced in his tuxedo, tie loose, jacket discarded like a surrendered flag. He replayed her words. "You didn't ask who I was." But he had asked, hadn't he? "What did you cook? Did you pay the bill? Why are you quiet?" He stopped. Those weren't questions about her. They were questions about the version of her that served his life. The door opened an hour later. Maria entered quietly, heels in hand, moving as if she didn't want to announce herself with noise. She looked tired, not physically, but with the heavy weariness of carrying disappointment. Clifford rushed toward her. "Maria!" She lifted a hand. "Not yet." He froze. She placed her heels neatly by the wall, set her clutch on the table. Every movement careful, controlled, like a woman who had learned not to let emotions spill. Clifford's voice came rough. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Maria looked at him. For a brief second, something flickered. Sadness, perhaps memory. Then it steadied. "It's late," she said. "Sit." He obeyed instantly, perching on the couch edge like a scolded child. Maria stayed standing. "You want to know why I never told you? I'll tell you. But you listen. No interruptions, no defenses. Just listen." Clifford nodded fast. "Yes." Maria drew a slow breath. "Before I met you, I had another life." He stared. "I studied international property law," she continued. "I worked with a firm overseas, not to prove anything, but because I loved the work. Contracts, ethics, land rights, investments, the things that shape cities." Clifford's mouth opened slightly. He had never heard any of this. My mother became very ill, Maria said evenly. I came home. I stepped away from that world because she had no one else. I became her caregiver. Clifford swallowed hard. Why didn't you ever? Her eyes sharpened. He closed his mouth. For 2 years, my life was hospitals, medication schedules, long nights, and the kind of grief you don't bring to parties. She paused, fingers tightening around her wrist. When she died, I felt empty, like I had served my purpose, and now had nowhere to put myself. Clifford's eyes stung. He had known her mother died, but he had never asked what it cost her. He had said, sorry, and moved on because grief made him uncomfortable. Maria went on. Around then, Uncle Whitmore reached out. He had mentored me since I was young. He offered opportunities, but I wasn't ready. I wanted something quiet, normal for a while. Her gaze settled on Clifford. That's when I met you. At the community center, he whispered, remembering. She nodded. You were volunteering because your company required service hours. You were frustrated the whole time, but you still carried boxes and smiled when people watched. I noticed that. I thought you were trying. Clifford flinched. You were kind to me then, she said. Gentle. You listened. You asked real questions. You made me laugh when I hadn't laughed in months. Clifford's eyes filled. I was real, he whispered. I was. I believe you were, Maria replied, but somewhere you changed. She walked to the window, looking out at the dark city. When we married, I didn't mention my past, because I didn't want credentials to become the center of our love. I wanted to be loved without status, changing how you saw me. Clifford's voice trembled. So you tested me. Maria turned slowly. I observed you. He nodded desperately. And I failed. Her silence was answer enough. Clifford's head dropped. I didn't know you were involved with Whitmore Holdings. Maria's expression didn't soften. At first I stayed out of it. But Uncle would call sometimes, ask my opinion on ethics clauses, foreign structures, risk, small, quiet conversations. Clifford looked up, stunned. All those nights you said you were reading, you were working? She nodded. I started investing again, slowly. Not to compete with you, not to shame you, just to rebuild myself. And the expansion deal? I advised on parts of it, she said. Flagged issues early, suggested safeguards. That's why Uncle said I played a role. Clifford covered his face. God. Maria's voice lowered. Do you know what hurts most, Clifford? Not that you didn't know my accomplishments. It's that you assumed I had none. You assumed my quiet meant nothing. His shoulders shook. I was insecure, he whispered. I didn't want them to look down on me. Maria stepped closer. So you made me someone they could look down on instead. The room fell silent. Clifford's voice came small. I hate myself for that. Maria watched him, face unreadable. Then she spoke, not cruelly, but truthfully. I don't need you to hate yourself. I need you to see yourself. Clifford wiped his face with shaking hands. Tell me what to do. Maria exhaled slowly. Stop performing. Stop using people as props to feel big. He nodded rapidly. Yes. And learn respect, she added. Not because you're scared of losing me, but because without it, you can't love anyone properly. Clifford swallowed. Are you leaving me? Maria held his gaze a long time. In that pause, Clifford felt every possible future. I don't know, she said finally. I'm not making big decisions tonight. I'm tired. Relief and fear twisted inside him. Okay. Maria walked toward the hallway, then stopped. One more thing. He looked up fast. I didn't expect to be humiliated tonight, she said. I expected discomfort, maybe awkwardness. I didn't expect you to choose cruelty so easily. Clifford's face crumpled. Maria, She raised a hand. "Sleep, Clifford." And with that, she turned down the hallway, leaving him in the living room with his tuxedo, his shame, and the version of himself he could no longer pretend away. The next morning, Clifford woke to a silence heavier than sound. Sunlight poured through the curtains, ordinary and bright, as if the world hadn't split open the night before. He stepped into the hallway. The guest room door was closed. "Maria," he called softly. No answer. In the kitchen, a mug sat on the counter, kettle still warm. She had made tea and left without fanfare. No music, no cooking smells, no humming. He checked his phone. Messages from colleagues poured in. Tundai. "Bro, you scattered everything last night." Another. "Hope you're okay. That was wild." A senior associate. "FYI, Mr. Whitmore wants a meeting Monday." Clifford's stomach knotted. He tried Maria's phone. No answer. He texted instead. "Can we talk when you're ready?" "I'm here." An hour passed, then 2. Maria finally emerged. White blouse, dark trousers, hair neatly pulled back. She looked like herself. Quiet power, quiet distance. Clifford stood. "Good morning." She nodded once. "Morning." He swallowed. "I made coffee." "Thank you," she said, pouring a cup without looking at him. He hovered. "Are you going to work?" "Yes." "I can drive you." "No." The single word landed like a door shutting. Clifford's hands clenched. "Maria, please. I know you're hurt, but shutting me out." She set the cup down gently. "I'm not punishing you, Clifford. I'm protecting my peace." He blinked. "So you're just done talking?" "We talked last night," she said calmly. "You heard me." "I heard you," he said quickly. "And I want to fix it." "Wanting isn't fixing." His voice rose slightly, desperation leaking. "I can change." Her expression stayed steady. "Then change." He stepped closer. "Tell me what you need." Her eyes softened a fraction, but her voice remained firm. "I need space to breathe without feeling responsible for your growth." Clifford's throat tightened. "You're my wife." "And I'm a person," she said quietly. "Not your mirror. Not your coach. Not your emotional support." He flinched as if hit. "I didn't know I was doing that." Maria picked up her phone and keys. "That's the problem. You didn't know, because you didn't look." Clifford followed her to the door, panic rising. "Are you leaving me?" She paused, hand on the knob. "I'm leaving this conversation for now. That's all I'm promising." "Where are you going?" "To the office. Whitmore Holdings." His chest tightened again. "Are they talking about me?" Maria looked back. "Clifford, they're not obsessed with you. They care about results and character. Last night wasn't about embarrassing you. It was about you revealing yourself." His eyes dropped. "I'm sorry." Her voice softened slightly. "I know you are." Hope flickered. "Does that mean I believe your regret is real?" she said. "But regret without growth is just another performance." Clifford nodded, swallowing tears. "I'll do the work." Maria studied him. "Do it for yourself. Because if you only learn respect when someone is watching, it isn't respect. It's fear." He breathed shakily. "Okay." Before stepping out, she added, "And Clifford, don't contact Uncle Whitmore. Don't explain yourself to colleagues. Don't do damage control." He frowned. "Why?" "Because it won't be about truth," she said. "It will be about your image. And your image is what made you cruel." Clifford's shoulders sagged. "I understand." Maria nodded once and left. The door closed with quiet finality, making the apartment feel twice as empty. Clifford stood there a long time, listening to the silence. Then he picked up his phone and searched for therapists nearby. No overthinking. No rehearsal. He booked the earliest slot. At work, the atmosphere felt different. Not hostile. Worse. polite, controlled, like everyone had silently agreed to treat him like someone carrying an unpleasant smell. Tundai approached near the elevator with an awkward half-smile. "My guy, you good?" Clifford nodded stiffly. "I'm fine." Tundai's smile faded. "No vex, but you messed up big time." Clifford didn't argue. "I know." Tundai studied him. "You really didn't know she was connected?" "I didn't know her," Clifford said quietly. "Not the way I should have." Tundai blinked, surprised by the honesty. "Okay, that's deep." Clifford stepped into the elevator alone. His reflection stared back. Tired eyes, stiff posture. A man who had spent years acting like someone else. For the first time, he didn't try to fix his face into confidence. He just looked. When the doors opened, he walked out quieter than ever. Not defeated, not dramatic, just aware. Because the real work wasn't winning Maria back. It was becoming a man who would never again need to shrink someone else to feel tall. Clifford didn't see Maria again until nearly midnight. He sat on the couch in the dark living room, suit jacket folded on his lap like evidence. He had left only one lamp on, the small one by the bookshelf Maria liked because it made the room feel soft. Tonight, it made the room feel like it was waiting for judgment. His phone lay untouched on the coffee table since his last text. He had tried not to watch the window, tried not to check the door every minute. But time crawled when silence might mean goodbye. The key turned in the lock. Clifford stood so fast his knees ached. Maria entered quietly, not rushing, not sneaking, just coming home with the calm of someone who refused to carry panic that wasn't hers. She slipped off her shoes, placed them neatly, hung her bag. Only then did she glance his way, acknowledging his presence the way one acknowledges a piece of furniture. There, but not central. "Hi," Clifford said, voice dry. "Hi," she replied, neutral. He took a step, then stopped. "I just wanted to make sure you got home safe." "I did." She walked to the kitchen, poured water, drank slowly. The ordinary sound felt loud. Clifford watched her hands. They weren't shaking. That scared him more than anger would have. "How was work?" he asked, grasping for normal. "Productive," she said, setting the glass down. He nodded like that explained everything. Then he blurted, "I booked a therapy session." Maria's eyes lifted, not impressed, not moved, just attentive. "Tomorrow morning," he rushed on. "I know it doesn't fix anything, but—" "Clifford," she interrupted gently. "Don't sell your effort to me like it's a product." He froze. "You're looking for a reaction," she said calmly. "A reward, a sign you're already forgiven." Clifford swallowed hard. "I just want you to know I'm trying." "I see that you want to try," she said carefully. "Not warmth, not rejection. Truth with edges. Are you coming to bed?" She held his gaze a moment. "Not tonight." He blinked rapidly. "Okay." She walked past him toward the hallway, paused near the guest room. "I have an early morning. I'll be quiet," he promised. "Clifford," she said, turning slightly. "This isn't about noise." Then she entered the guest room and closed the door softly. No slam, just a click. Clifford stood in the living room a long time, staring at that closed door like it had swallowed something irreplaceable. The next morning he dressed without noise. No cologne, no humming. None of the small rituals he used to claim the space. He drove to therapy with both hands on the wheel, heart pounding like he was heading to trial. Dr. Harris was calm, no nonsense. Within 10 minutes, Clifford realized how much he talked when afraid. He tried to explain the gala, the pressure, the image, the judgment. He tried to make it complicated. Dr. Harris leaned forward. "Why did you choose to humiliate her instead of saying, 'This is my wife'?" Clifford stared at the floor. "Because I didn't want them to judge me." "So you offered her up to be judged instead," she said gently. "Why?" Because it felt safer. Safer for whom? For me, he whispered. Dr. Harris let silence do its work. When did you learn that safety comes from making someone else smaller? That question haunted Clifford for days. He thought of his father, adjusting a cheap tie in the mirror, saying, "Poor men have to act rich, or they get stepped on." He remembered his father laughing too loudly in rooms that never respected him, then coming home angry, kicking furniture, blaming the world. Clifford had sworn he would never be that man, but he had become something worse. That afternoon he drove home and saw Maria leaving the building with a colleague, confident, calm, speaking as if she belonged anywhere. He didn't call out. He watched for a second from his car, then looked away like he didn't have the right. That evening, rain came down hard and sudden. Clifford was at Whitmore Holdings for a brief department meeting. He left feeling smaller than ever, not because anyone insulted him, but because no one tried to soothe his pride. They spoke to him like a man who had shown poor character. The only path forward now was consistent change, not explanation. In the lobby, he saw Maria again, alone this time, standing near the entrance, waiting for her driver. She looked tired, not broken, just human. Clifford hesitated, then approached carefully. "Maria." She turned. "It's raining," he said. "Your driver. Is he coming?" "He's stuck in traffic," she replied. No helplessness, just fact. Clifford swallowed. "Can I drive you home?" Maria searched his face, not for charm, but for intent. He held still, forcing himself not to overtalk, not to perform. After a moment, she nodded once. "Okay." The word felt like a fragile bridge. Clifford opened the passenger door like a man remembering manners. Maria got in without comment. He closed it gently, walked around, heart thumping like he'd been given a gift he hadn't earned. Inside, silence returned immediately. Rain pounded the roof. Wipers swept in steady arcs. Clifford drove slowly, careful, as if sudden movement might shatter something. He wanted to speak, opened his mouth twice, closed it. He remembered her words. "Don't sell your effort like a product." Minutes passed. Maria looked out at rain-streaked lights. Clifford's hands tightened on the wheel. "I'm learning things," he said quietly. She didn't turn. "Good. The therapist asked me something," he continued, voice rough. "She asked when I learned that safety comes from making someone else smaller." Maria's eyes shifted slightly, not toward him, but as if she felt the weight of the sentence. "And I realized I've been doing it for years," he said. "Not just with you. At work. With anyone I thought could make me look weak." Maria's face stayed composed. "And what are you doing with that realization?" Clifford swallowed. "Sitting with it. Not defending myself." She turned her head a little, studying him. "That's new." He nodded, eyes burning. "I'm sorry, Maria." She didn't respond right away. Rain filled the space. Then she spoke, soft but clear. "Do you know what hurt most at the gala? Tell me." "It wasn't the word," she said. "It was your ease. The way you said it like it cost you nothing to reduce me." Clifford's eyes flooded. He blinked hard, focusing on the road. "It did cost me," he whispered. "I just didn't feel it until it was too late." Maria watched him a second longer, then looked back out the window. "That's the tragedy of arrogance," she said quietly. "It numbs you before it destroys." They drove the rest of the way in silence, but it wasn't the same silence as before. It wasn't punishment. It was space where something honest had finally been laid down without drama. When they reached the apartment, Clifford parked and turned off the engine. Rain had eased. Maria unbuckled. Her hand rested on the door handle. Then she paused. Clifford didn't move. He waited. "Thank you for the ride," she said without looking at him. "You're welcome," he managed, voice cracking. Maria stepped out, walked toward the building. then stopped and turned slightly. "Clifford." He looked up fast. "Don't confuse small progress with finished work," she said. "But keep going." Then she went inside. Clifford sat in the car long after she left, staring at the wheel as tears finally fell. Not loud sobs, just quiet release. For the first time since the gala, he felt something real. Not hope of winning her back yet, but the beginning of becoming a man who no longer needed to steal dignity to feel he had any. The next week stripped Clifford in ways he hadn't expected. Therapy wasn't dramatic. It was slow, uncomfortable, sitting in a chair while questions turned lights on in locked rooms. At home, Maria kept distance with discipline. She wasn't cruel. She didn't shout. She didn't throw mistakes in his face. She simply stopped cushioning him from consequences. Clifford noticed the missing small kindnesses, the way she used to refill his water bottle without being asked, remind him of meetings, check if he'd eaten. Now she moved through the apartment protecting her own energy, and he realized how much of his life had run on her quiet labor without him ever naming it. One Saturday morning, he found her making tea in the kitchen. He hovered near the counter like he needed permission to exist. Maria didn't look up. "You have something to say?" Clifford swallowed. "I've been thinking about my father." Her hand paused at the kettle. "Go on." "He used to tell me poor men have to act rich to be respected." She poured hot water with steady control. "And you believed him?" "I didn't just believe him," Clifford said. "I built my whole personality around it." He rubbed his face. He'd come home angry, blaming everyone for not taking him seriously. I swore I'd never be him. But I became worse. Maria turned slightly. "Worse? How?" "He wanted respect," Clifford said, eyes filling. "I wanted worship." Her gaze didn't melt into comfort. It softened into understanding. "There's a difference." "And worship makes you cruel," she said quietly. Clifford nodded. "Yes." That afternoon, a neighbor greeted Maria warmly in the hallway, complimented her confidence, her grace. The neighbor barely glanced at Clifford. The old irritation rose. Instinct to reclaim attention, to assert importance. He almost spoke sharply. Almost. Then he remembered the rain-soaked ride home, remembered her words. Don't confuse small progress with finished work. So Clifford breathed in and did something unfamiliar. He stayed quiet. He let Maria be seen without trying to compete. Later that night in the bathroom, he stared at his reflection under harsh light, lines around his mouth carved by forced confidence, tired, afraid eyes. He heard Dr. Harris in his head. "When did you learn safety comes from making someone else smaller?" He whispered to the mirror. "I'm sorry." The mirror didn't forgive him. When he walked out, Maria was reading in the living room, legs tucked under her, peaceful in a way that showed how hard she had fought for that peace in their marriage. Clifford sat at a distance, careful not to intrude. "Can I ask you something?" She didn't look up immediately. "Speak." "Do you think you ever loved me?" he asked. "Or did you just love the man you hoped I was?" Maria's eyes lifted slowly. Calm, but old pain lived behind them. "I loved you," she said. "The version of you that existed when no one was watching." Clifford's chest tightened. "And now?" She closed her book. "Now I'm not sure who you are." He nodded, jaw trembling. "I don't think I knew either." Maria studied him. "Do you know why I didn't correct you at the gala? Why I didn't interrupt when you said those things?" "Why?" His voice was small. "Because I wanted to see what you would do when you thought you had power," she said. "And you showed me." Clifford winced. "I hate that I did." "Hate is easy," she replied. "Change is hard." Tears spilled. He wiped them quickly, ashamed. "I don't want to lose you." Maria's face didn't change. "I don't want to lose myself." That wasn't a threat. It was a boundary. Clifford nodded slowly. Tell me how to stop making you feel like you have to protect yourself from me." She watched him a long moment, then spoke carefully. "Start by listening without arguing. Stop explaining your intentions like they erase your impact. Stop needing me to prove you're a good man." "Okay," he whispered. "And respect me in private the same way you would on a stage," she continued. "Because if your respect depends on who's watching, it isn't respect. It's fear of embarrassment." Clifford's throat tightened. "You're right." Maria stood. "I'm going to bed." He looked up fast, hope flickering. "Your room, or my room," she said calmly, and walked away. Clifford sat alone, staring at the empty spot where she had been. He felt the ache of what he had broken. But for the first time, he also felt clarity. Maria wasn't waiting for a grand gesture. She was waiting for a man who could face his reflection and tell the truth without needing applause. Change didn't come as a single dramatic moment. It came as hundreds of small choices that bruised Clifford's ego daily. He kept therapy, even when work pressed. He wrote in a notebook as Dr. Harris suggested, honest entries, not inspirational quotes, ugly truths, jealousy, need for control, the way he had enjoyed feeling superior. One page read, "I used Maria like a shield." Another, "I don't know how to feel small without panicking." Dr. Harris asked him to volunteer weekly, not for image, not for guilt, but to practice seeing people without ranking them. Clifford chose a shelter near the community center where he and Maria first met. On his first day, he wore plain clothes and tried to disappear. The woman at the desk handed him gloves. "Bathroom duty. If you're too important for that, tell me now, so I can give them to someone else." Clifford's cheeks burned. The old him would have smiled and found an excuse. This time he nodded. "I'll do it." He scrubbed floors and cleaned sinks until his back ached. No one praised him. No one called him sir. He went home exhausted and strangely humbled. When he told Maria he'd started volunteering, she didn't applaud or soften. She just nodded. "Good." At first he wanted her to notice, to say she was proud. Then he realized he had spent his life expecting rewards for basic decency. So he began learning to do the work without a prize. Meanwhile, Maria moved forward with her life. Clifford watched from a distance. Her schedule shifted. Her clothes became more grounded, her posture even stronger. She took calls in the living room, calm, professional. She wasn't trying to intimidate him. She was simply returning to herself. One evening she came home and placed a folder on the table. Clifford tensed instinctively. Old associations with papers and control. Maria spoke calmly. "Uncle Whitmore wants me to lead a mentorship program for young women entering the industry." Clifford nodded carefully. "That's amazing." She studied him. "You don't sound threatened." "I am," he admitted quietly. "But I'm trying to sit with it instead of turning it into something ugly." Her face softened, not into forgiveness, but recognition of effort. "That's growth," she said. Clifford's throat tightened. He wanted to rush to her, beg, hold on to that word like salvation. But he stayed still. He let it be what it was. Weeks became months. The apartment grew less tense, though never intimate. Maria sometimes shared small updates, not deeply personal, but not cold. Clifford learned to respond without steering everything back to himself. One afternoon, he learned Maria was speaking at a professional event on ethics in real estate. His first instinct was to show up, be visible, prove support. Then he remembered, support isn't a spotlight. So he went quietly, sat in the back in plain clothes, hands folded, listening. Maria stood on stage, voice calm, powerful, speaking about dignity in business, transparency, how people hide behind titles to excuse harm. Every word felt aimed at his former self. When it ended, people crowded her with praise. Clifford didn't approach. He didn't want to take even a second of her moment. He left, walked into the evening air, sat in his car with chest tight. He pulled a small card from his wallet, wrote slowly, and left it with the front desk for Maria. The note read, "I'm learning not to win you back, but to become someone worthy of loving." He drove home before she arrived. When Maria got home later, she held the note a long time. Clifford watched from across the room, afraid to speak. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were softer than he had seen in months. For the first time, she smiled. Not wide, not dramatic. Just a quiet lift at the corner of her mouth, like a woman allowing herself one careful moment of hope. She said nothing. She simply placed the note inside her book, like it mattered. Months later, Maria chose a small, ordinary cafe. Quiet. No chandeliers. No crowd. Just soft music. Clean tables. Sunlight pooling on the floor, like a reminder that life goes on. Clifford arrived early, not to impress, but because he didn't want her waiting. Simple shirt, no flashy watch, no forced confidence. He sat with both hands around a cup of tea, breathing slowly the way Dr. Harris had taught him when anxiety tried to take over. When Maria walked in, he stood immediately. She raised a hand slightly. "You don't have to do that." He sat back down. "Okay." Maria took the seat across, placed her purse aside. She looked composed, not distant. There was a difference. "Thank you for meeting me," Clifford said. "I'm here because I want clarity," she replied. "Me too." A waitress came. Maria ordered tea. When she left, silence settled, less sharp than before, more honest. Clifford spoke first, voice steady. "I won't defend what I did. I won't explain it like that makes it smaller. I humiliated you because I wanted to feel big. That's the truth." Maria watched him closely. "And why did you need to feel big?" Clifford exhaled slowly. "Because I felt small most of my life. And instead of facing that, I built a mask that needed applause." Her eyes stayed calm. "And the mask made you cruel?" "Yes." Maria took a slow sip. "What has changed?" "I'm still capable of those same instincts," he said carefully. "They haven't vanished, but now I recognize them. I don't feed them. I'm learning to sit with discomfort instead of turning it into control." Maria studied him. "Give me an example." "At work, I stopped exaggerating my contributions. I started crediting others, even when it made me invisible. And I realized visibility isn't value." Her gaze sharpened slightly, checking for performance. "And at home," Clifford continued, throat tight, "I stopped expecting you to manage my emotions. Stopped asking you to comfort me just because I feel guilty. I'm trying to carry my own growth." Maria's face remained steady, but her eyes held something softer. "And what do you want from me now?" He hesitated, then answered honestly. "I want the chance to rebuild. But I'm not asking you to go back to who we were. I'm asking for the chance to show you who I'm becoming." Maria looked away briefly, watching sunlight on the table. When she spoke, her voice was quiet. "Clifford, I'm not ready to return to the marriage as it was." He nodded. "I understand." "But," she continued, "I'm open to rebuilding trust, slowly, carefully, with boundaries." Clifford's breath released shakily. "Thank you." She raised a hand slightly. "Don't turn this into a celebration. This isn't a reward. It's a process." He nodded immediately. "You're right. I won't rush it. If we rebuild," Maria said, "it will be on respect, not fear, not appearances." "Yes." They talked longer than either expected, not about deals or status, but ordinary things. Her mentorship program, his volunteering, books she was reading again, childhood memories he was finally brave enough to share. The conversation wasn't romantic. It was real. When they stood to leave, Clifford didn't reach for her hand. He didn't try to claim closeness he hadn't earned. He simply walked beside her, matching her pace, as if learning how to be present without possession. Months later, Whitmore Holdings hosted another gala. Maria's name was printed clearly on the program as host and keynote speaker. Guests arrived with the same polished smiles, same expensive perfume, same hunger for relevance. Clifford attended too, but not chasing attention. He sat quietly in the crowd, dressed simply, posture calm. When Maria walked on stage, the room turned toward her like gravity. She spoke with the same steady strength, never mentioning Clifford. She didn't need to. Her dignity required no public proof. Clifford watched with a quiet pride that didn't come from association, but from finally understanding what it meant to honor someone without trying to own their light. When applause rose, he clapped too. Not loudly, not to be seen, but sincerely. And as the night continued, he felt no old panic of invisibility. He felt something new. Peace. Because respect, he had finally learned, wasn't demanded from a room. It was practiced with the person closest to you, even when no one was watching.